Defeating you won't be easy.
You can try all you want, but that will be impossible.
Say what?
Your fighting style reeks of arrogance. Ego infects your techniques and makes them impure. You think you're entitled to greatness.
Is that supposed to be insulting? You say I'm arrogant, I say damn right. That's pride. Pride in the Saiyan I am.
Most of you think you want to win, but in reality, what you want is comfort, right? So in this video, we're essentially going to be talking about how a lot of problems you're going to have, a lot of patterns that you're going to repeat may just be an ego problem. You know, that's what we're going to be breaking down today. Mainly focusing on our first character, well, our only character in this one, but Vegeta, the Prince of Saiyans. What do you know? Meaningless, huh? What do you know of meaningless? You know, everyone loves Vegeta. I love Vegeta. He's my favorite Dragon Ball character other than like Kid Buu, which I keep saying I'm going to cosplay him, but I probably will eventually. We'll see though. But basically, we all know Vegeta. And what makes Vegeta fascinating is not necessarily his strength, but mainly his mindset. You know, his pride in his Saiyan legacy, his Saiyan royalty, his Saiyan pride, right? And unfortunately, at least a lot of holes for Vegeta's training. Like if you compare him to Goku, Goku's like, I just want to be the best, I want to be the strongest. Vegeta's like, I got shit on the line, right? I got shit on the line, I got shit to do. And, you know, even though he's mellowed out over the last couple years, it still comes out in various ways, right? Obviously, most recently I can think of, at least in the anime, is the Tournament of Power where he fights Jiren and they're exchanging, right? And the thing is, Jiren's like, your fighting is pretty good, but you have holes. Like the way you fight has pride in it, right? Like just for real life comparison, if you guys ever watched The Drunken Master, right, in boxing, the way he's fighting is so unorthodox. It's almost like he doesn't really care what he's doing. You know, like he'll just throw random BS out there and it'll just somehow work. He'll win sometimes, he might not win. But if you watch those videos, right, that's essentially how he's fighting. Like imagine, like he's purposely leaving holes in his game in order to like prove something to everybody else. Like I am a Saiyan, I'm the Prince of Saiyan. That's just what I do, right? But that comes with the underlying problem of Vegeta, in my opinion, right? When it comes to Vegeta, at almost every point, well also, the spoiler alert, he loses that fight, obviously. But also, like, only so he also may have some plot armor stuff. But regardless, he still has to deal with the fact that he is failing for the most part because of his pride. Like if Vegeta trained like Goku, it would make a more boring story. But in real life, if Vegeta just trained like Goku, he'd probably be just as good, if not greater. Because given Dragon Ball Z logic, right, Vegeta should be unlocking some sort of prince royalty form because he's a Prince of Saiyans. He has royal blood in him, right? Shoot, this lid's a lot of work. Okay, here we go. A lot of work. What was I saying again? Oh, yeah. You know, it starts off very early. It starts off when he first gets introduced to the planet, to Earth, right? When he gets introduced to Earth's fighters, right? He underestimates the fighters to a degree, to Earth's fighters. Like he kind of does, he kind of doesn't. Like his entire team is just trashing all these fighters, right? I don't even think he remember. I don't even think he knows about Goku beforehand. But regardless, like, he underestimates the power of teamwork, and he essentially loses, right, in some capacity or another, you know, just relying on his own strength. Doesn't learn anything from anybody else because, frankly, he's at a point in the series where he just beats everybody, basically, plus minus some stuff. But when you're winning all the time, it's kind of like, dang, I don't really need to be focusing on how to help other people, right? But eventually, he loses to Goku, right? Not that big of a deal. Understandable. First major loss, gets his tail cut off, whatever, right? Keep in mind, if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, I haven't watched the anime in a hot minute. All right, I just remember this crap because I was obsessed with it for a little bit. Anyway, second thing, in the Cell Saga, I forget the Cell Saga comes before the Saga, but regardless, in the Cell Saga, it was even worse because what the heck you mean this guy is going to threaten to destroy the planet and you're like, nah, man, I'll handle it, no problem. Right? Right? It's to the point where he lets Cell power up to his most perfect form, right? Because he thinks he just got it, right? And it backfires, he loses, same course of action, right? What else? What else? Oh yeah, Busag, Babidi. He got controlled by freaking Babidi because he wanted to prove a point. And he goes on this whole speech about how Goku's a nobody and how I'm this Princess Sans and how I'm supposed to be here and I'm not. And here's Goku. He's supposed to be here. He's not. He's basically bitching about Vegeta. I'm sorry, not Vegeta. He's basically complaining about what's it called? Goku's achievements while not being royal blood, right? But constantly, over and over and over and over and over again, does Vegeta prove that maybe pride is not really the smart way to go when you're losing against powerful foes, because you were either overconfident in your abilities or just prideful. Straight up, okay? And we can look at Goku, obviously, not necessarily the complete opposite, right? But he's similar in that vein because he just wants to be the strongest. He just wants to be the best. That's all he wants to do. Whew. Right? Vegeta's ultimate weakness is just how prideful he is. It's not, that's pretty much what it is. He's dang near almost as strong as Goku. If he would just train to just train like Goku, have the same mindset as Goku, he'd probably be better than Goku. Probably. Because he's gotten here by himself already. He might as well just try to implement something special, something different, you know, that type of stuff. But that's just cognitive dissonance. What's cognitive dissonance? I'm sure you heard of it before. But basically, cognitive dissonance is just the thing that happens in your mind is not actually happening in real life. Plus, minus some stuff, right? Cognitive dissonance prevents you from growing, prevents you from being the person that you need to be to get to the place that you want to go, right? Regardless of where that is, okay? Even, oh my gosh, that sled brings it out of me, y'all. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little one, they are weak, but he is strong. It can be hard to get rid of because most of the time you don't even realize you have cognitive dissonance unless you are self-aware enough to see it, right? Even recently in my own life, I struggle with cognitive dissonance when it comes to my academic life, right? I know you guys know I'm an internship. We're basically studying a whole lot of stuff, right? But what I'm studying, right? When I first got to the program, I was like, it's easy because I was actually passing my test. My first test I got an 87%. My second test, I got 73. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pass this easy because I'm a good test taker. You know, I was interested in the subject, but I didn't study as hard as I should have, primarily because I thought I could just test my way out. Because all I have to do is just memorize some information and then be done with it. Easy work, easy money, right? But The further I got into the program, that mindset came back and bit me in my butt, right? Because I always just thought I could just or just like not go as hard when it comes to studying as I could have, right? But that ended up leading me to a place where I wasn't passing my classes at one point because, frankly, I thought I could pass with ease. No problemo, no problem, right? Obviously, that's not true. Right now, I think I'm barely passing. I'm like at 67%. I just had to take a couple retakes. I should be fine. But I'm just gonna move to the next exercise. Then we're gonna go from there. Take a break. But that's essentially what cognitive dissonance does. Okay, it protects an identity that you made for yourself, even though you didn't necessarily earn it, right? But, geez, hopefully I'm able to balance this on my back. We'll see. But essentially, just like as the example that I gave earlier, essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is that it didn't really help me, right? Especially in the forms of technology. If I just kept that mindset no matter where I was going, I would never become a better technician when it comes to technology, a better network engineer. Because I wouldn't really care about the problems being solved or being permanently solved. I would just care about, I got the answer, let's move on. It doesn't work in the real world, especially when things are overly evolving over and over again. I don't know what to do because I got so caught up in, I believe I'm the best already, but I didn't act like it. I didn't always want to grow. I didn't always want to change, right? Let me do these pushes real quick. Ooh. Yeah, I've been out of shape for a hot minute. I look at freaking, I don't know what I look like on camera right now. I look like a freaking turtle probably. Baby, I just want to dance. I just want to dance. The problem is that in this story, and a lot of times in my life, I don't adjust immediately, right? Like what I did in order to change that initially was just to study 2 hours after class, get it in, right? That's what a lot of people who did the program before me did. That's what I did. I studied 2 hours beforehand, got it done, right? Afterwards, almost immediately afterwards, I'd hop on the game, right? Hop on the game, anime, TV shows, whatever it was, right? But I was being unproductive, right? And what would happen is that all the information that I learned didn't get to, update in my head. And because I didn't do that, guess what happened? I failed the test because now the belief in my head was I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I should be able to pass, right? Cognitive dissonance, right? That didn't happen. And that kept happening over and over again until I started slowly failing. Like I was doing good in the beginning, but I was slowly failing, right? Why was that? When I got on the game, when I watched the anime, what happened would be I'd watch all the content that wasn't related to my schoolwork or whatnot. I wouldn't have Professor Messer playing in the background. I would have like once the 10 hours in total of work and studying I did was done, I was done. My brain was fried, so I had an excuse there. I was like, I need to decompress, right? But I would spend too much time on the video games, on the entertainment, on the brain dead stuff, that all the information that I learned 2 hours beforehand would just get pushed out of my head. Combine that with I'm doing everything I need to do. I didn't really see the issue with what I was doing until later on in the program, where I'm like 3% off from not passing whatsoever. You understand? From not passing whatsoever. Okay? Now, that being said, 11. Hold on one second. I gotta adjust this. That's 15. That's 25. I got 25 left to go. Anyway, from there, I made it worse because what I do is that I compare myself, because I wasn't the only person who was failing in class, right? So I looked around, I talked with some other my classmates or whatnot. Some of them were failing too. Some of them were academically not as good as me at the time. Or at least that's what I thought initially. I don't know if that's true or not. But I was doing a lot better than some people in the classroom. Not the majority of the classroom, but some people. And in my head, I was practicing, I was reviewing, I was doing all this stuff, right? I was doing the proper steps, right? I just wasn't going the extra mile, right? But eventually I was like, well, if they're not passing, it's not a big deal that I don't want to pass because I've been too hard on myself on the past and I don't want to be too hard on myself right now, right? But we already talked about that in a previous video about how the extremeness, the radicalness with which you go after something may determine the end result. Anyway, right? But eventually, reality caught up to me, right? CompTIA A+ exam. I made a video about that a while back. Okay, it's the Deku one. But eventually what would happen is that I took this CompTIA A+ exam test, right? I went there, practiced it, I learned all the stuff, right? Took the practice tests, all that other stuff, right? And when I went there, I didn't pass the first time, right? No big deal. 6 other people passed, I didn't, whatever, right? I did all the stuff that I was doing right, properly, right? Right? We had this discussion beforehand. But it didn't click for me yet, right? Take it the first time, fail, whatever, barely pass. Barely fail. Like, I think I'm like 30 points off. Not a big deal. I pass second time. I'm sorry. I go for the second one, right? Everyone that I went with passed. Everyone in my class passed, whether it was the first time or the second time. Guess who didn't pass? I didn't pass. Right? And I already expressed I was kind of upset about that. I was kind of angry about that because I should have passed. If she could pass, if he could pass, if they all could pass, I should have passed. It didn't really matter, right? But that's when reality started kicking in for me. And I'm like, dang, I gotta freaking lock in. Guess I gotta lock in with these push-ups. Baby. That was effectively my issue. In a previous video, I talk about how growth makes you feel vulnerable. And one thing that entire situation left me with was the truth, was that, I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Not because I was like incapable, because I'm doing all the steps properly, but I'm not reaching the expectations that I need to reach in order to pass. Right? So that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. I felt like my insides were exposed to everybody, and everybody was just like, ew, look at all those insides, right? I felt like my intestines were just everywhere, right? Even though none of that stuff was happening. Matter of fact, people were encouraging me, like, hey, you know what? You'll get it next time, just pass your core 2, and you'll probably get a voucher for your second one. I'd be like, okay, cool, awesome, great, whatever, right? That being said, I didn't have to go through all that if I just made less excuses for myself, decided to lock in, just take all the junk out for 2 months. For 2 months, right? I've been talking about my studying in CompTIA for a year. I can't lock in for 2 months. Just take away the video games, the anime, all the other stuff. Just shut all that stuff out and just school, work out, make videos, eat well. That's it. That's all I had to do. No, I didn't want to do any of that like an idiot. Anyway, I gotta hit these last push-ups, dude. I really do. I'm really not looking forward to this at all. But baby, honestly, I feel like Donatello when I put this thing on. Because I'm the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're gonna count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4 turtles. Here we go. 5. All right, let's toss this. That's where cognitive dissonance hurts you the most. Because instead of coming up with reasons, well, not even instead of coming up with reasons, it's just that what you say you are and what your actions apply to and what you do don't really match up. Like you say you're disciplined. You say you get up every morning, and you say, get up at 5, you get up, and you take a shower, you go to work, come back, do all the other stuff, right? But in reality, you're waking up at 5, laying around for maybe till about 6:30, getting up, taking a 30-minute shower, rushing to work. And then when you're all that, when you're done tired and everything, you gotta like slug your way home, get all this stuff together, come to set it all up, memorize your script, and then get to recording, right? Similarly, and instead of like seeing that bottleneck or whatnot, you're just like, well, you start justifying yourself. You start justifying yourself in your head. You start saying like, I work better under pressure. You start saying stuff like, pressure makes diamonds. You'll start saying stuff like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just take this day and I'll come back tomorrow. But like, you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have, because you may not have it anymore, or there might come a time period where you haven't taken it, and because of that, you don't progress as fast or as concretely as you could have. And what I mean basically about like progressing concretely is that every inch you take is more firm, right? I say all that stuff to say this, okay? Sometimes people are going to surpass you, not because they're smarter than you or they're better than you, but because they put away their ego away long enough for them to see the results of what they want. 5. Oh shit. Dude, I've not done pull-ups in a hot minute. I need to start getting back in the gym, dude. Jeez. Pride will sit here and say that you already know this stuff. Pride, ego will say, I shouldn't have to do this. But growth will be like, what can I do to do better? I'm trying not to kip, but that was a very, very clear struggle that I have, right? Anyway, that's what growth will do, though. The stuff that you tell yourself is going to impact you to a degree that you don't really see until much later on, right? I believe in negative self-talk, but my ego tells me your self-talk doesn't matter if you're not actually doing it, or vice versa, depending how I feel that day. If you keep protecting your identity with just words, empty words, if that, you'll never grow, you'll never upgrade, you'll never become the person you want to be, right? Failing that exam twice was a reality check for me. I didn't have to go through it, but I did, right? So like instead of whenever I failed a test, instead of going, I don't need to do that, I should already know this stuff, I should be able to pass anyway because they passed it, that doesn't change the fact that I just might be different and that I need a different approach to what I'm studying in order to pass, right? I started taking notes more seriously. I started studying more after school. Instead of going to my house to be distracted, I will go out to the library, Starbucks, cafe, or even just study at the building after school. I didn't go home until I had to change and go to work, just as an example. I didn't, like, even now, right? I started making less excuses for myself to start filming and making content in the gym area, and I'm still gonna do like the at-home stuff, but I found, like, I think this is a lot more engaging for everybody else, right? But I'm tired from doing these dang pull-ups. I still gotta hit the bag after this, right? But instead of making excuses, I just start doing it, start acting like it. Make sure I talk about discipline I do, talk about all this stuff I do. I make sure I'm trying to live it out to the best of my ability on a regular basis. Okay, it's not easy, but it is simple. I have to make time for the things that I care about. I'm making a video on that later, but if you're always focused on being the smartest person in the room, then you'll never truly get to the place where you need to go, because I'm trying to focus and jab, but because you'll just avoid the rooms where you're not the smartest, because you need to feel the smartest. You need to feel the admiration of being smart. You need to hear the affirmations that you're very smart and that you're the smartest person ever. But those are not the best rooms to be in because you won't grow that way, right? So, I hope I'm getting across another way, you know. Don't let your, ooh, that's disgusting. Anyway, don't let your pride get in the way that you want to, you know. If you catch yourself being like, it's kind of I'm not really doing what I envisioned doing, take some self-assessment. You know, obviously let a certain amount of time pass, but you know, do some self-reflection, self-assessment often. Do it often. Really evaluate, are you not understanding this? Are you not understanding the concepts, the procedures, the lessons? You know, if that's not the case, if you are understanding it, what else are you doing? Are you entertaining yourself too much while you're trying to learn and grow? Are you going to, do you need to switch up your schedule? Do you need to get around, do you need to stop being around certain people? You know, stuff like that. But regardless, try to watch this video one time, this guy just whipping that body shot. But regardless, don't let your ego and your pride get in the way of you becoming better because you believe that you're something that you're not, you know? Anyway, if you're a person struggling with this, please like the video, share with a friend. If you're watching this from a clip, obviously, go watch the full video on YouTube, man. Anyway, Trafficletic, code MINT. You like the drip. Trafficletic.net, code MINT, M-I-E-T, 10% off your order. Quantum forever. Adios.